Welcome to the Contact Center Gurus, the podcast for contact center and customer experience leaders. Learn best practices, new technologies, tips and tricks, and more. Today's episode is sponsored by Support Logic. Support Logic is the world's first support experience platform for customer support leaders, helping you move from providing reactive to proactive support. Reduce customer escalations by 40%. Reduce customer churn by 25%. Improve proactive outreach by 60% and more. Extract the voice of the customer in real time without surveys. Elevate your customer support and transform your customer experience with groundbreaking applications for next-generation customer service and support. Change the game with applications that leverage innovative AI and NLP technology, intelligent workflows, and intuitive UI for the SX platform. Sign up now for a free sandbox environment at www.supportlogic.io. This podcast is sponsored by Balto. Do your reps forget the right things to say on calls? Do they frequently put customers on hold because they don't know the answer? Or maybe they forget to ask discovery questions that help qualify customers. With Balto, you can guide each rep through their conversations at the push of a button. Balto rides along your reps' screens, listens to both sides of the conversation, and shows them the best things to say live on the call. After just 14 weeks of using Balto, National General Insurance saw 16% higher conversions and 53-second lower handle times. Head over to balto.ai/guru to get a free pair of Bose headphones for a demo. That's BALTO.ai/GURU. This podcast is also sponsored by OzoneTel. Is a contact center part of your customer service strategy? OzoneTel's AI-assisted platform will help you deliver the best experience possible. It's an affordable contact center solution with advanced features, deep native integrations, and outstanding service. There are no contracts or annual commitments, and you can get a basic contact center deployed within hours. Experience it yourself with a free trial at www.ozonetel.com. This podcast is sponsored by Cloud Tech Gurus. Cloud Tech Gurus are the hottest technology matchmakers for contact center leaders in the country. Sourcing technologies and solution providers is grueling, time-consuming, and complicated. They make the process simpler and more efficient. The Gurus map out your requirements, source solutions providers, help you choose the one that is the right fit, and help manage the implementation, all at no cost. They work with nearly every major vendor, more than 150 solutions providers, and are vendor agnostic. They help save you time, money, and headaches. Visit www.cloudtechgurus.com to learn more. Now, let's listen in.
Okay, welcome back to the Contact Center Gurus podcast. And if you don't know me by now, I'm your co-host, Jessica Voss.
And I'm the other co-host, Darren Prime. And with us today are our friends. We have Alex McBratney from Adler Advisors and Aarde Kasaboom from Clariti. And Aarde was just a keynote speaker at CCW. Great to have you on. Alex, did you speak there too?
No, I didn't have the pleasure. Aarde's
all right.
Go-to
I thought maybe
speaker.
Aarde brought you with you and you like partnered up on it or something.
Aarde's the contact center guru, right?
Yeah, thanks for having us on. But Alex, you did speak at Frost & Sullivan here in Huntington Beach about a month ago, 2 months ago.
I did, yes. And that was a great experience, and just being able to talk through some of the key issues going on today. Great event. Obviously, can't go wrong being in Huntington Beach, California. So
no, wonderful. You can't. Why don't we start with just a little background on yourselves and the kind of consulting you do, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Yeah, so our company, Adler Advisors, we're telecom consultants, trusted advisor for our IT clients and for our contact center clients. I've been at this for about 12 years now. I can't believe it's been even over a decade. Looking back how far and how green I was at the beginning. But I got started just door knocking, selling Time Warner Time Warner Cable door to door all throughout LA and Orange County, just going down up and down Main Street, hitting all the businesses, and really just cut my teeth, jumped right in. And then slowly, as as business grew, transitioned more and more to upmarket. And so now where we really focus today is working with those mid-market clients, the 100 to 2,000 employees, and really try to give that white glove service and expertise that we learn along the way.
Yeah, and I'll go next. Aarde Coxboom. So I've been in the contact center industry on the customer side for almost 20 years now. I started at a company called MindBody Online. I was employee number 3. I was the first person in the contact center, and I literally took calls and answered emails while on calls, multitasking. So started as a humble agent, worked my way up to team lead, supervisor, manager, then all the way up to senior director, and helped that company go public. So saw a company from basically bootstraps to having to report to the street on a weekly basis what our metrics and numbers are. And then I moved down south to LA and helped a couple other companies that were post IPO refactor and migrate to the cloud. And then recently helped an organization with BPO workers overseas, a little bit less than 2,000 agents, helping them automate with AI, self-service, and automation, which I think is the theme for today. Talking a little bit about what is self-service, what is AI, how can it help the customer experience?
Also, if folks look you up on Amazon, they'll find you're a published book writer.
Yes.
What's the name of your book?
Yes.
Enable
Better Service.
As
We will
Aarde would
have the
say,
link down below.
It's the biggest business card that he has.
It's the heaviest business card ever.
Awesome.
You carry those around at trade shows too?
Oh yeah, only about 4 or 5 because it's just too. I look like a traveling nomad with a sack full of books over my shoulder.
Well, we will have a link to buy your book in the comments below, so everyone can check it out. Well, let's get into it. So our theme today is about the Great Resignation, and we're going to be talking a little bit about AI and the gig worker. So I know I've seen it everywhere, especially on LinkedIn, because I live on LinkedIn, about the Great Resignation. And now we're in the Christmas week and coming into the new year. So I would love for us to discuss maybe some best practices or ways to leverage AI and the gig workers. So
maybe also mention for those that aren't really sure what the Great Resignation was, if you want to kind of mention what it was and how it's still impacting customer care. Well, it's impacting businesses in every vertical, but maybe start there, and then we'll kick into how automation and gig workers are the solution.
Well, what was interesting is that who would have thought that in 2020 with COVID-19 that it would spawn this Great Resignation where people were able to step back and really look at their lives and see like, well, what's important these days. And I think what pushes a lot of it, and what's been great about COVID-19, one of the brighter spots of the very dark spots, is that it progressed technology, right? And so now all of a sudden everybody's able to work from home. There's flexibility. Over the year of COVID, people got used to that, and they wanted to keep that, and they realized they could be just as productive, not have to commute an hour to work and an hour back from work. Aarde and I, being Orange County, LA, there's a lot of traffic out there, many people want to be in that traffic. So when businesses aren't in the position to, say, yes, stay at home, they want to bring it back in, people start realizing, hey, there's more to this. There's more out there. There's a worker shortage. There's a lot of demand for good quality work, and people just started looking at it and just punching out and just saying, I'm going to go find something better that fits my lifestyle.
Yeah, and in the contact center, what we've heard, because Alex and I do consulting, but we also run a podcast as well, a lot of the people that we talk to who oversee contact centers, even before COVID, had a hard time with agent turnover, had a hard time with training and ramping people up. Took 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month to get someone up to speed. So now that we're in this environment where people are resigning and doing their own thing, the labor pool is much smaller. The pool that you had, that people who had worked for your company for 3 or 5 or 10 years are deciding to go do their own thing and stay at home, and not necessarily come into the office. It's hard for these organizations and teams to be able to find talent and retain talent. So they're looking for alternatives. They're looking for AI. They're looking for gig economy workers, which we'll dive into a little bit later. But they're at the end of their straw. There's not a lot of options for them. So yeah, it's hitting everyone pretty hard, and it's we're all competing against each other to retain our talent, which makes it for a very interesting world out there. I think I read an article yesterday about a California McDonald's, I think it was up near Chico, was offering $35 an hour.
Whoa.
And how can a call center compete with that? If they could just go work at their local McDonald's and make double what they potentially can make answering calls in a contact center.
Yeah, and you see these huge hiring bonuses as well. I mean, I saw signs down the street where it's $5,000 signing bonus for a mechanic at an small auto shop. So there's a lot of money out there being thrown around to get this talent in. And like I already said, if the minimum wage is 15 and that's what the contact centers think they can get someone at these days, they got to think again, because McDonald's down the street is offering 35 apparently.
Yeah, and I do talk to a few, and they're trying to battle the whole, how much are we going to pay people now, especially coming into the new year? What's going to be our competitive differentiators as a company to entice talent? So I think that's where some creativity around tools, mainly AI, can come into play. So what kind of AI tools are you guys seeing that are actually helping companies overcome the Great Resignation? And I'll start with you, Aarde.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of things. So the obvious one is self-service. So chat bots, voice bots, thinking machines, anything that can help with those transactional inquiries from your customers. So it used to be called call deflection, and then we hated that term because it's not really deflection. It's self-service. It's really enabling your customers to do what they need to do transactionally with your organization without having to wait in queue, having to talk to an agent. The other thing that's kind of interesting, and this one is probably a little bit harder, and that's why it's taken the industry a little bit longer to perfect it, is true agent assist tools. So this can help not only in real time while someone's on a call or on a chat. It can surface to the agent what the exact script should be to answer the question that just came in, or a help suite article that is extremely accurate because you've got AI basically scrubbing through the responses to see which ones were the best. It also can help with agent onboarding. So instead of having a 1-month onboarding because there's so much churn in the contact center, these tools can help onboard an agent and get them up to speed because it surfaces the relevant information from the knowledge base versus the stale old stuff that no one will call in about. Maybe one person will call in every 2 months to talk about that topic. You don't need to train your agent about that. You can basically train them on all the more important stuff. And then later when that topic comes up later in the month, it'll surface that. So that's what I'm seeing. Those are the two areas that are really innovative, and there are companies that are adopting them, and then there are companies that are hesitant to cross that chasm and invest in that today.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm doing a study right now on AI adoption, and by the way, visit our site and participate if you can. And basically, we did a preliminary one many months ago, and we found there's a large percentage of businesses that haven't adopted it. And the reasons why they said they hadn't adopted it is because they're afraid that when they adopt it, at least when they get started, they're going to have a reduction in their CX, and they're afraid to have that happen. And we're doing a bigger study now. So the study is around who's adopted it and what did they see, what were the results, who hasn't adopted it and why. and a whole bunch of questions. And ultimately, it's going to land in a published report on AI adoption, so companies can see how they stack up to their peers, what the results have been, what has kept companies from doing it. So it should be pretty interesting. So we need a lot of companies to participate, but that kind of lends itself. Yeah, AI. We ultimately think a lot of folks don't know the difference between, let's call it intelligent AI and dumb AI, which isn't really AI. If you've got chatbots with just workflows and if-then statements, that's not an AI bot. But I think a lot of people associate with those kinds of chats and things that they see on websites with companies they do business with, like, oh, this is so frustrating, this is horrible. And when they have intelligent AI, it can handle complex interactions before it actually routes anything to a live agent. And it can, some of the better ones can handle complete interactions without ever needing an agent. And in fact, they do predictive analytics in the beginning, so they know specifically which interactions they can handle potentially completely without an agent. And of course, that's going to reduce, when you call, I remember during the worst of the pandemic, calling my wife, calling into Sirius satellite radio. And all she wanted to do was have them ping my car radio because it wasn't working. She waited on hold for 45 minutes or longer before she finally got a rep, and then the call disconnected. So she had to do it all over again. The AI could have done that real quick and easy with no queue time. So so part of it is folks like yourselves that are out there speaking and podcasting, getting people to understand that there's a difference between dumb bots and real AI types of solutions that do a great job with customer interaction, save companies money, improve CX, and much more. What are your thoughts on that? Have you seen that with your clients too, where sometimes they think, oh boy, AI is going to wreck everything? I've experienced some of these bots on sites I do business with, and we're a little afraid of that.
Yeah, what we're seeing is a lot of companies aren't even ready for AI, right? They haven't even made the jump to a true cloud-based contact center solution, right? Like the nContacts or Genesys of the world out there that can overlay or be the foundation for the AI. So to jump from their PBX or a very simple cloud solution up into the AI world, it takes baby steps, right? And it takes, do they have the data already in hand, the call recordings that they can plug in so the AI can work before it even goes out into the real world? And the more people we talk to on the podcast, they talk about how AI, it's an employee. You have to treat it like an employee. You have to train it, you have to nurture it, coddle it. I don't think you're not giving it as a health insurance program. But what Aarde was saying earlier too, which I really want to tap on, was all these tools for the agent, right, to help them make their job easier. And it reminded me of something that Nate Brown was talking about at one of our events, and that's the employee experience. We go back to the Great Resignation. What does your employee experience look like, right? Everyone talks customer experience, and that's been the buzzword for the last 5 to 10 years. And where Nate and his team are saying it's all moving is now the employee experience, right? And how that's going to keep people on board for these companies and keep your talent, because if their experience is crappy, they're not going to stick around. They're going to go to a company that's adopting all the good technology, that has the knowledge base, data dips, and the AI helping them do their job more effectively. Because contact center, it's not an easy gig, right? Picking up the phone, answering bots, people yelling at you at times, and be very demanding emotionally. So if you don't have those tools and that AI helping you out, it's just going to make the job not fun, and they're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And those AI tools as well, some of them reduce training times, cut it in half, and reduce the time that it takes an agent to go from rookie just hired to equivalent to your veterans in just weeks instead of months. So and I imagine you guys are smarter than me, you could probably figure out what the cost savings is there, but kind of a nice additional benefit.
Aarde, what was the statistic on people that are like new hires? How much of them make it through to the end? I forget which guest it was, but they're talking about how
I think it's a high number, which is good. But I think it was in the 80%. So 80% make it through. So every time you're hiring, for every 10 people that you need, you should be hiring 12 people. You're going to have 2 people churn pretty quickly within the first couple weeks or months. There's actually a funny story back to McDonald's, and it's just every employee of McDonald's, I don't know if you guys know this, has to work next to the fryer for at least one day. Even if you're a C-level, you're the CFO of McDonald's, you got one full day next to the fryer, and if you can't hack it next to that fryer, you can't work at McDonald's. So at my old company at MindBody, we used to do the exact same thing. Everyone that was hired into the organization, whether you're in finance or a developer, we put you on the phones for 8 hours talking to customers. If you can hack that, because that's one of the hardest jobs, is taking 20 to 30 calls a day, troubleshooting, talking to customers. If you can't hack it there, then you don't really deserve to be in the organization. And the best thing is you get to really learn what it's all about. You get to hear your customers, you get to understand what their problems are. So yeah, that's a great experience. But that was before we had technology. Now we have the ability to have recordings and be able to push to a CFO almost in real time. Here are the things that are going wrong with the organization. Go ahead and listen to them. Listen to the top 4 problems or pain points, or, and then it'll really influence the way that people think about their business, because we have the technology and the data behind it, and the AI or the tools with speech analytics to be able to push that information forward.
Yeah. Does anyone else have a craving for chicken McNuggets? Keep talking about McDonald's. Free promotion, like they need it. So I love what you said, Aarde, because I always talk to people too about, one, have you experienced your own employee experience? And 2, have you experienced your own customer experience? Because I'm finding a lot of people say no, they haven't. They're in these roles and they've never, like you suggested, Aarde, taking calls from customers and did a full day of work and realized, whoa, there's a problem here. And, here's how we should solve this. Or even the customer experience, like what Darren mentioned, 40-minute wait. Oh my God, I would have hung up after 5 minutes of waiting. And a lot of people on the other end in the contact center world, they may not be aware. And if they are aware, you should be doing something about that. So it's very, very vital. So I would definitely reach out to Alex and Aarde about any AI tools that, can help your business on the Great Resignation. Now let's turn it over to talk about the gig workers. And if you guys want to explain, one, what is a gig worker? Because a lot of people don't know that term, and then kind of walk us through the value of leveraging gig workers.
Yeah, I'll jump in first, and then Alex, I'll toss it over to you. So what we've been hearing a lot is employees want to work, but they want to work on their own terms. But everyone has a different preference. So if you think of a contact center rep, traditionally 2 years ago, we'll say before 2020, it was, I'm okay with going in the office. I'm okay with answering calls. I get to clock in, clock out. Then I go home and I don't have to think about work. I leave it all at the office and I'm good. I do my 9 to 5 and I do it 40 hours a week, which is great, especially for the contact center world, because it's a high-paced, intense job. You're literally talking for 8 hours straight with a 1 hour break and maybe some 15-minute breaks in between. Now, fast forward to where we are today, you've got people who are working from home. The majority of the people are working from home, if not commuting to the office, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 days a week. And they're taking calls from the comfort of their own home. They don't have a good support structure around them, so they don't really have their team leads to turn to. They don't get a lot of feedback other than feedback over Zoom calls. They may see metrics and things like that on their screen, but they're very limited with regards to connectivity to the greater organization. So they're sitting at home, they're working. They may say, you know what? I don't want to do this 8 hours a day. Maybe I want to mix it up a little bit. Maybe I want to do 3 hours answering calls for company A, and then 4 hours of the day answering calls for company B. And then I could even work into my late hours too and do another shift just to make more money for company C. And then, you know what? Next week, I'm going to take the whole week off because I just want to take vacation and I don't even have to tell anybody. I just don't have to pick up those shifts or those gig economy roles. So that's what the gig economy is doing. It's enabling people to pick and choose where they want to work and when they want to work and for how many hours. Almost like, think of it like Uber drivers for the contact center. You can kind of pick a shift or not pick a shift depending on how you feel. So that's what we're seeing. Alex, I'd love to hear your thoughts about the gig economy.
Yeah, you know, I don't have the experience you've seen in the actual contact center, but from the people we talked to and just seeing, obviously Uber was a big push towards that gig economy. It was there before Uber, but they kind of brought it into the mainstream because you have companies like Fiverr where you can find developers, or you want someone to cold call for you on the sales side, and it's really easy. It's a great tool, and you can get people from all over the world. So it really has globalized the competition for employment as well, for better or for worse for the companies that are struggling to find people, right? Is now that there's availability for these other companies to get access to the Philippines, where before you had to open up your own BPO. Now it's no problem. You want a couple of gig workers out of the Philippines or India or wherever. Now we're seeing Central America. So it's pretty much everywhere at this point. So really, you know, it's mainstream now. I think the companies that are adopting it to mitigate this, you know, great resignation, to kind of fill the gaps, the ones that are forward thinking are going to be the ones that make it and continue to press on that employee and customer experience and continue to, you know, find ways around this great resignation.
I wrote a blog about it. Essentially kind of the Great Resignation. My blog was entitled, "Is There Really a Staffing Shortage?" And, you know, talked about how, you know, of course, the 4 million people in a month. But on top of that, at least when I did my research, there was, I think, 8 million people that were out of work, that were potentially looking for work. There was 10 million jobs. Did I get those switched around? I think I got them right. And there's 50 million gig workers. So, you know, essentially my summary was there isn't a staffing shortage. There's a shortage of companies willing to adopt what has come about through evolution of staffing and workforce. More and more people want to be gig workers. There's plenty of them out there. That's why someone could choose not to work, and it's no big deal because the community is so big that they have enough people that have been trained and qualified for that campaign or that client that they just plug in one that can. And of course, some good tech there to do that. But so, you know, anyhow, there's really just companies that, it was kind of like when I sold CCAS in 2009. Boy, you know, no one was willing to move to the cloud. They thought that was crazy to not have servers in the room there that they could see and touch. And it took a long time for the adoption rates to pick up. And with this too, there's a lot of companies, well, that's not how we do it. You know, we have our HR team that handles talent acquisition and recruiting, and we hire them as employees, and that's how we do it. But if they open their mind and they adopted a different strategy based on what's actually happening, whether they like it or not, the gig economy, well, then there really isn't a staffing shortage. There's 50 million people out there looking to work.
What do you see, Darren, as far as some of the risks involved for companies that look at it going, if they can do the gig work, no problem, but they're worried about, you know, brand assets and, you know, things that they don't want out there and can't trust maybe a gig worker versus an employee as much? Aarde or Darren, like, where do you see companies pushing back, and is that wise because some of the risks involved or potential risk?
Aarde, you start.
Yeah. So I've seen a couple things. So I'll take it from the agent or the employee experience. So some of the risks to the agent: you quit a 9-to-5 job. Now you're working on a W-9, and you're not working for an individual company. You're collecting payments from 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 different organizations every month. You have to have your own HR. You have to make sure you have accounts. You're chasing down your accounts to make sure that you're getting paid for the work that you did. You have to make sure that you're sending your reports and being judged on how well you performed to multiple different bosses instead of one boss. So there's companies out there that are interesting. They aggregate all of that. So basically, there's a company out there that does payroll aggregation for gig economy workers. So they basically just use the bank account, that single bank account, and that company collects on the payments every 2 weeks. and then takes a percentage of that and then passes the rest via PayPal to the employee, and the employee files the W-9 with that aggregator, and that aggregator helps with all of their taxes at the end of the year. So there's these sub layers of tool sets that are being created because of the gig economy, to make the gig economy worker and then also the gig economy employer lives a little bit easier. So that's what I've seen.
Yeah. The only thing I could add to that is, nowadays, more often than not, whether it's an employee or gig worker, they're at home. And so regardless, you're able to enforce, for instance, if you use VDI, DAS, or mobile device management, you can ensure whether it's an agent's personal PC or one that gets shipped out, for example, or whatever the case might be, there's tools in there to ensure the compliance and security. The same as if they're an employee who you bought a computer, configured it, and shipped it to them. And there you have shrinkage on that one too. But so you really have all the same security, and there's even tools for workspace monitoring. So you can ensure that they have a clean desk if the policy demands it. So not too much of a difference.
Yeah, that's good. And I think the gig economy on the employee side, like you're talking about, Aarde, there's a lot of flexibility and freedom there, but it's not as rosy and sunshine as it might seem on the outset, because I think about career growth. Half the time, half of our podcast guests that run contact centers or our chief customer officers, they have people in the contact center, and they find ways for them to leave the contact center to go into different parts of the organization to grow and mature their career. There's mentoring, there's all that goes with working for a brick and mortar company versus a gig worker. And I think you'd miss out on a lot of that being a gig economy worker.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, well, with gig workers, certainly there's a lot of people that want to be gig workers, so that's pretty good. And yeah, you're going to miss out on that. But the thing is that I haven't seen so far. Now, I think there'll be brilliant companies that master this, and they use partners like some of the ones we have, and they kind of manage the whole gig worker thing for them, or can supply them with gig workers if they want to run the model on their own. But where was I going to this? But most of the time with companies, they're not moving to it completely. Although I think there'll be brilliant companies that do that down the road to save money and have a more flexible type of staffing. But they're augmenting. So like, for instance, we have BPO clients where they're going to staff the way they always have for about 80%. And then they're going to use gig workers for the other 20%, and for specific campaigns where there's spikes, seasonality spikes and so on. So far, still, yeah, it could track if they like a gig worker well enough, and that person wants to move up the ladder at the company. Certainly there's an opportunity for them to be hired.
Yeah, and actually it could be a great way to get into a really great company too. Start off as a gig worker, kind of like, staffing companies, right? You get in there as a temp, like from the office, right? The temp. And once you're there and you show your worth, then you can maybe get a job there or move on. I think also a lot of the success or failure of that gig work for the employer is the management and the leadership executives that have experience and how well they're able to manage both the employees that are remote and the gig workers that are remote, and treat them like an employee, right? Similar to the AI, treat it like an employee, because you don't know what talent you're going to find, and you can lure them in to possibly working full time at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to nail it on basically the gig workers, the next gen of staffing agencies, staff augmentation, temp agencies. Those have been around for decades. It's kind of like the whole cloud conversation. Cloud has actually been around for decades. It's just sometimes we reterm things. So I think the risk and reward, it would be similar to a staff augmentation or a temp agency that companies are already using. And then when it comes to the gig workers themselves, I feel like that's booming because people feel like they have more control and choice over their life and career. Like Aarde mentioned earlier, hey, this week I'm going to the beach. Next week, okay, I'm going to work 80 hours or I'm going to work 4 hours. So they kind of have, more control of their destiny. So I think that's the biggest hype on the gig worker side.
Yeah. Well, I've seen two models for gig. So gig workers, Uber, right? So there's that model. You log into the app, you want to work, you work. You only get paid while you're driving somebody. You don't get paid when you're sitting on the side of the road or in between or anything else. So there's that model too in gig workers for contact center, gig CX, it's being called now. and that's fine. So that's available. And yeah, you only get paid while you're on a call. Call centers aren't paying for bathroom breaks or when people are at the water cooler shooting the shit. They're only paying for utilized time. Brilliant model. There's also the model where essentially the gig worker is able to say, all right, yeah, they're able to submit time off and all, but they're able to say, I can work Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 8 to noon. And the company agrees, the gig worker agrees, and they're not just logging in working when they want. They got say in their schedule versus most employees. You're going to work nights. You're going to work 8 hours during the day. You work Saturdays. They're able to, again, have some more control over their destiny and still remain independent contractors. Although I love your idea there where companies could try them out, try before you buy, and they like them, they could actually offer them a job. But if they want to leave being a gig worker, now they're a full-time employee or a part-time employee.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot about people picking up as a secondary job, moonlighting. So they've got the 9-to-5 brick and mortar. Let's say they're doing calls for Acme Co. 9 to 5, but they're not progressing with their pay or compensation. They're not growing with that organization. So they're working, they're moonlighting, they're doing 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon for like a Shopify in the gig economy. And then eventually that may eclipse it where there may be more opportunity with, let's say, Shopify over Acme Co. And they may switch and say, now I'm going to do a 9 to 5 with Shopify, and then I'm going to moonlight with Acme Co. in the gig economy. So lots of flexibility and lots of mobility for employees to also have that ability to try before you buy and then move and migrate around. So very interesting. I also read an article recently about an employee that had 2 full-time jobs, 2 9-to-5 jobs, and then he had his sister as a gig economy worker helping him with one job. And then when he had to go to those meetings, he would jump over to that job and she would start working on the other stuff. So people are getting interestingly scrappy with the gig economy. Sometimes it should not be allowed. But yeah, it's a very interesting world. And I think the way that we think of employees will have to be different in the future with this swarming of potential talent and swarming of work that can be done and accessed through tools like Fiverr and a lot of the other ones that you guys have in your portfolio.
Well, awesome. So Alex, Aarde, any final thoughts before we end today's session?
No, just move forward with AI. To Darren's point, there's this wall and this barrier. AI is here and it's evolving. It's already an amazing tool set. So if you have an initiative internally at your contact center, or your customer service team or sales team, move it forward. Don't hesitate. And then the other thing is dip your toe into the gig economy. Talk to a consultant, talk to organizations that have done it in the past, see what works, see what doesn't work. Maybe try 5%, 10%, or a portion of your staff next year just to augment those spikes, those seasonality spikes up and down to see if it works.
Brilliant. Yeah, I would say, really quick, there's ROI in AI, right? Work with a vendor partner that can help prove that out for the CFOs that have the tight purse strings, and use that to their advantage because there is ROI in this side with call deflection, right, Aarde? And then other things that can help boost the contact center metrics. So yeah.
Well, all right, there you have it. For those contact center leaders, there is a way to combat that McDonald's $35 an hour going on. Is that California? Going on in California. So listen up. You can find Aarde and Alex's information at the bottom and on LinkedIn. And I hope you all have a wonderful Merry Christmas this week. And thank you all for your time.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Take care.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Contact Center Gurus podcast. Make sure to visit our sponsor pages. Support Logic at www.supportlogic.io. Balto at www.balto.ai. OzoneTel at www.ozonetel.com. Cloud Tech Gurus at www.cloudtechgurus.com. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you next time.